This is the pivot where we tackle real subjects that are central to our game. Canadian basketball player Kim Gaucher recently had gone viral, if you want to say, with a plea video to bring her 3-month-old daughter, who is currently breastfeeding, to the Olympics. Now, the Tokyo Olympics have been very firm. No friends, no family, no exception. But Kim is currently appealing this in order to bring her husband and her daughter to the Olympic Games. Now, you've seen her covering both the men's and women's college hoops. Of course, she is covering the WNBA as well. Holly Rowe is celebrating over 20 years at ESPN as one of the most versatile commentators. Holly, how are you doing?
I am so great. And I'm really thrilled that you wanted to ask me about this topic, because I don't know if you knew this, but I am actually the #1 Kim Gaucher fan in the entire world. So I covered her at the University of Utah, where she was an all-conference performer for 3 straight years, one of the best players in the University of Utah history. And I got to be there and have a front row seat to her greatness. So I've been watching her play for over 20 years now. And I'm passionate about this topic. So I'm really grateful that you're bringing me on to talk about this, to honor Kim Smith Gaucher and all that she's gone through.
I appreciate you hearing that. I'm happy that you were able to talk about her journey and her experience, because also, as I illustrated just off the top with your amount of work and body that you have, you are also a mother and a working woman. So what was your reaction then when you first heard Kim's story?
Well, #1, I want us to celebrate what she's accomplishing. This is a woman who's just given birth, that is putting herself in the best shape of her life to try to get to the Olympics. She's qualified to be on the Olympic team. My goodness, let's celebrate what she's accomplishing as a woman and as an athlete. And then let's make it easier for her. This is inexcusable that a nursing mother would not be able to bring their baby. She is literally the food source for her child. And it's inexcusable. This has to be a concession that the IOC makes. It's unusual. Not every woman there is going to be in this particular situation. And so they can make an exception, and they should. It's a human rights issue to me. And I'm shocked that the IOC does not make this concession for Kim. She should not have to choose between being an elite level athlete. She's earned the right to compete for her country and feeding her child. That's what it is. If this baby was older, it's a 3-month-old baby. We all know the studies that talk about how crucial breastfeeding is at this time in infancy. This should absolutely be a no-brainer, and I would expect the IOC to make a change on this, because it is a human rights issue.
Absolutely. And I think that we take it for granted sometimes just how progressive the WNBA really is as a league, and we'll get there a little bit later. But, I want to call out the fact that the Olympics is the biggest stage in sports within the world. So is this the more accurate reflection of where we are at when it comes to supporting women in sports?
Well, I think that we have a long way to go. We saw that this year at the women's NCAA tournament. I did a story on the air about Nadia Barnes being late coming back out onto the court because she had to breastfeed at halftime, or had to pump at halftime. I mean, this is a real life situation that women are constantly going through. And after we did that story, then we found out that there were not nursing facilities there at the Final Four, that women who were coaching in the NCAA tournament did not have the proper facilities. And so this is a conversation, I don't know why as women we haven't had it before. I think we're sort of embarrassed, like, oh, I've got to run over into this closet and pump as I'm, trying to get ready to go to work. I think we have to be more vocal about it and more open about what we're doing. And I think it's important that we're having these conversations, but let's keep pushing that envelope, and the IOC has to be pushed now in this situation.
And you mentioned breastfeeding, at a game that, as we saw in the NCAA, but we also saw that, let's rewind a little bit to the inaugural season of the W, where Cheryl Swoops was breastfeeding in the locker room. And I want to ask us how far we have come to now we're talking about Skylar Diggins, sharing her battle with postpartum depression.
Right. Well, I think we're seeing women in the WNBA, and that's actually the Connecticut Sun team cheering behind me. I'm on the court side getting ready for a game. I'm looking right now at DeWanna Bonner, who actually had twins 3 years ago and has come back to play in the WNBA. We have a lot of mothers now. Cheryl Swoops had to do that. Candace Parker was breastfeeding her baby in her second season in the WNBA. So there's a lot of women who have made these concessions, and the new CBA actually finally has language in there to protect players who are mothers. And I think that we're seeing more and more of it. If this is a workplace environment that is good for women, it has to be good for working mothers, because we're seeing more and more of them in the WNBA. And I want them to feel supported and loved at every turn.
Holly, thank you so much, as we are always trying to turn the conversation in a new direction. I appreciate you sharing your perspective here on The Pivot.
Thank you for having me. Sorry it's noisy in here. We've got a good game tonight, but I just absolutely love, support Kim Gaucher. She's a legend in Canadian basketball, and anything I can do to support her, let's bring this topic up, make sure she is a supported mother at the Olympics.